During development, it was planned that Shadow of the Colossus would have a happy ending. Ultimately, the script was scrapped, as the team felt when dealing with the topic of resurrection, a happy ending would not be possible. So the ending was rewritten to the ending we get in the final game. We have known about the ending for a while, as it's been mentioned by director Ueda multiple times. In 2023, there was an artbook released called The World of Fumito Ueda, which contains never-seen-before storyboards of an alternative ending. I want to read through this storyboard to see how the alternative ending panned out. Then I want to look at how the alternative happy ending was described in the official guidebook, as well as being mentioned in the Famitsu interview. Let's take a look at the Shadow of the Colossus alternative ending. As mentioned before, the World of Fumito Ueda artbook contains the entire storyboards of the alternate ending. On the Team Ico wiki, it says the translations will come at a later point in time, but it seems around half of them are there, enough to understand the ending. Pages 1 through 6 are the same as the final ending, but from page 8 onwards, the ending differs greatly. Before getting to the alternative storyboard, I want to recap the original ending. Our protagonist Wanda defeats the final Colossus. Lord Emmon and his company arrive at the Shrine of Worship as they witness the last temple idol crumble. Wanda appears in the temple, now showing clear signs of corruption. His skin is pale, his eyes glow silver, and small horns have emerged from his head. Emmon recognizes him as a transgressor who, before Wanda's journey to the Forbidden Land, stole the ancient sword used to slay the Colossi. Emmon orders his men to kill the possessed Wanda, who approaches Mono but is ultimately stabbed through the heart by one of Emmon's warriors. Dorman, now fully restored, takes control of Wanda's body, transforming him into a shadowy giant. As his men flee, Lord Emmon throws the ancient sword into a small pool at the temple's rear, summoning a whirlwind of light. The vortex engulfs both Dorman and Wanda, sealing Dorman within the temple once more. As Emmon and his men escape, the bridge to the temple collapses, permanently isolating the Forbidden Land. Although Emmon condemns Wanda's actions, he expresses hope that Wanda may one day atone for his deeds, should he have survived. In the temple, Mono awakens to see Agro limping in with an injured leg. She follows the horse to the pool where Wanda and Dorman were drawn in by Emmon's spell, and discovers a male infant with small horns on his head. Mono takes the child, follows Agro to the upper levels of the Shrine of Worship, and reaches a hidden garden as the game concludes. The translations for the panels are taken from the wiki. I have made some minor changes, such as using character names instead of descriptions. However, I haven't made any embellishments and kept the story and action the same. There are missing translations from page 14 to 21, but using a mix of Google Translate and knowledge of the original, I pieced things together. Let's take a look at the storyboard as is, and I will give you more context and explanations later. The first page is missing, meaning we only get a glimpse of the first few panels in the Ico and Shadow of the Colossus collection booklet. containing the scene of Emin and his gods arriving at the shrine of worship. Pages 2 to 7 play out similar to the official ending, but I will show them here for comparison's sake. The shaman says his line like in the original. He is horrified by the destruction of the idols. They notice a young heroine lying down. The heroine begins to glow. Camera tracks back. Mono comes into frame. The heroine is enveloped in a mysterious light. Agro cannot stand up because she is injured. In brackets, it says last boss battle, so it must be in that area. Or I've translated it wrong, and it's just the bottom of where we see the horse fall. The fallen hero doesn't move a muscle. Light pours down, and his body floats in the air. The camera pans down from the sky to Mono's face. Emin's hand reaches out. He fears what has to be done. The shaman's gods surround Mono. Lord Emin turns when he hears the sound of the protagonist falling. Wanda lies in the middle of the hall. He tries to muster the strength to get up. At the same time, shadows begin to appear around him. Emin scorns Wanda for stealing the sword and coming back to the Forbidden Lands. Emin instructs one of his men to kill Wanda. The angle lowers. Guard A draws his sword. Guard B readies his crossbow. He looks back and forth between the shaman and the protagonist, seemingly unsure. Wanda rises to his feet. He holds himself in pain. He steps forward slowly. The shadows do not follow. The god hesitantly raises his bow. The shaman orders the attack again. Guard B immediately shoots his crossbow. The bolt hits Wanda in the leg. The man collapses again. He grabs his injured leg. He looks towards Emin with a pained expression. Emin says a line telling the god to finish off Wanda. The sword-wielding god raises his weapon over Wanda. An intense light begins to emanate from Mono. The shaman is blown away by the force of light. Then a pattern begins to cover the heroine's body. The shaman, now on guard, stares at the heroine with a surprised expression. He rushes to get up. The heroine emits a bright light and wind, captivating a god. The camera rises. The protagonist Wanda also gazes at Mono. The clouds are seen flowing rapidly throughout the skyline. The panicked shaman is in disarray, flustered and unsure. The shaman tries to escape from the scene while uttering the Sealan command. Lord Emin orders the god to attack Mono with his spinning backwards gesture. The god slowly approaches her with his sword in hand. The camera pans up. The god aims for her neck and prepares the sword. The god thrusts the sword with great momentum. Here, the description says, shrugging movement. The heroine awakens and the attack is repelled by a barrier-like thing similar to the one used by the woman in Aiko. God 1, who lost his sword, grimaces in pain after receiving a shock to the hand. He backs up to where Wanda is. The sword drops in front of the camera. The gods are afraid. They begin to flee. Mono continues to glow on the pedestal. Mono's eyelids move, but they do not open. The heroine slowly gets up. Her face looks dazzled. She explores the top of the pedestal by feeling around, unable to see. Mono finds the edge and cautiously pushes her feet forwards. She opens her eyes slightly. Heroine's perspective, glowing. Buffer blur. This must be alluding to a blur effect. She gets off the pedestal. Wanda is in the background of the shot. He is unaware. Some of the shadows are watching the heroine. There seems to be a few panels missing here, but we can assume the storyboard artist is just starting a new page. The shaman ascends the stairs. Camera pans up. The shaman urges the guards to prepare to escape. He looks back towards the bottom. Lord Emmon peers into the temple pool. He reaches his hand into his cloak. The shaman takes out a magic horn. There is a note saying temporary, so it's possible that this item was due to change. He takes a moment to muster the courage to drop the horn. He throws it towards the pool. The horn falls. The horn falls into the pool, sealing off the temple. Light is emitted once the horn is submerged. An extremely bright light erupts from the pool. The light of the pool shines brightly on the shaman's face. Light and wind blow the shaman's hood back. There is a bandage on his head. He runs for the exit. The spell calms for a moment. Back at the pedestal, Mono is breathing and takes her first steps from awakening. The shadowy figures surrounding Wanda do not notice her. Wanda turns his head to look in her direction. He tried to talk to Mono, but is in pain as the horns begin to grow. Wanda feels his new horns. Wanda crawls backwards. He feels the sword against his foot. When he touches it, the sword falls slowly. Mono looks at Wanda and the shadows. She approaches cautiously, with her arms reaching. From her perspective, you cannot see the shadows, and Wanda appears shadowy. She kneels down, her eyes are closed. She reaches out her hand and touches Wanda. Upon touching him, we see a close-up of the boss's faces, a continuous flashback. She blinks briefly. Mono retreats in fear. The sound of a bridge collapsing can be heard in the distance. The protagonist looks towards the entrance of the shrine. An injured Agro drags her feet and climbs the steps of the shrine, struggles to get into the shrine. Agro approaches Wanda. The shadowy shapes disappear to avoid the horse and slowly fade. Agro worryingly nudges Wanda with his nose. Agro raises her head slowly and walks towards Mono. Mono pets Agro. The camera pans up to the skylight. Page 28 is missing. Emmon arrives at the Forbidden Lands entrance. They slow down at the end of the bridge. The shaman looks back at the shrine of worship. Page 30 is missing. The silhouette of two people and the horse. Light rays shine down on them. Wanda looks up. A bird crosses the camera. Wipe transition. Images of the bird, similar to the beginning. Crossfade with weather changes. The position of the bird also slightly varies. Darkness. Change in direction and descending. Close to the surface of the earth. The camera approaches a figure. Agro rides with Wanda and Mono on his back. The camera overtakes the horse and brings the horizon into frame. That was the storyboard as written but I want to give more context and explain exactly what was going on. The Shadow of the Colossus official artbook and guidebook contains a wealth of information about things that were cut from the final game. I've featured many of the book's images of the cut Colossus on this channel. At the end of the book, there is an interview with the development team. They discuss the alternative ending for the game, as well as offer explanations for many of the aspects in the final version of the ending. Fumito Ueda describes the alternate ending. The voice of the girl that can be heard after defeating the Colossus says something that seems to hold Wanda back. At first, it's just her breathing, but as the girl regains consciousness, she starts speaking to Wanda. From the black band that pierces Wanda's body after defeating the Colossus, there's no escape. This fact cannot be changed, and it's sad. Actually, I had thought of a happier ending. However, considering the use of resurrection in the story, a happy ending seemed unlikely. I also considered that the ending would change slightly if there was saved data from Aiko, but I decided against it. Another idea was that the girl would be the one to come back to life first. While Emin and the others were torturing Wanda, the girl would be revived through the use of resurrection, becoming something beyond human, and her body would glow. One of the guards would try and kill her with a sword, but it would be deflected and the sword would end up stuck in the ground. Emin and the others would panic and escape, sealing this land once again, leaving Wanda and the girl to live together. Originally, Wanda was supposed to undergo significant transformations each time he defeated a Colossus, and in the end, I wanted it to be like Beauty and the Beast. The awakened girl couldn't see, so she would search for Wanda blindly. However, Wanda's appearance would have changed. The staff roll begins and they ride off together on Agro, with birds flying and Agro coming out of the shrine's exit. Then they both come out supporting each other. Wanda's sacrifice is his transformed appearance, which cannot be undone. In the early stages of production, Wanda had horns on his head, which is a remnant of that. Now looking back, there are parts that could have been better for the ending. If Aiko didn't exist, the ending might have been different, but in the end, many in the team thought the current ending was good. In the staff roll, the remains of the Colossi are shown one by one, and I wanted to include the flashback scenes there. When the girl touches Agro, Agro's memories would flow into her, and she would understand. Since Agro's leg was broken, it's possible that she couldn't bear the weight and die. But surviving with just one injured leg after falling from such a place is a miracle, isn't it? Furthermore, the ending continues from the opening. Birds fly in the sky, weather turns into thunder, and then the moon appears, returning to the first scene. The ancient land is unsealed by Wanda's arrival, and time starts moving again. A Famitsu interview has Fumito Ueda explain some elements of the game's story, as well as the reasoning behind not including a happier ending. After defeating a Colossus, a black band-like object pierces Wanda. In that case, you can control Wanda, but you can't change the fact that the black belt sticks into him. I have been saying in various places that the end is the same. It is the fact that it cannot be reversed that makes it sad. I had storyboarded a happy ending, but I felt it was too opportunistic. I felt that there could be no happy ending when dealing with the taboo subject of reanimation. On the contrary, I don't think there could have been a happier ending than that. I was also thinking of changing the ending if you had saved data of Aiko. I still think there are parts of the ending that I wish I'd done differently. Sometimes I wonder if the ending would have been different without Aiko. In a sense, it may have been tied to Aiko in some ways, laughter. But there were many people on the team who said the current ending was better. The interviewer asks about the voice that plays after the Colossus is defeated. That is the voice of the girl. We didn't play subtitles, but there is an exact line in the setting. It's an appeal to Wanda to stop doing what he's doing. It's interesting that Ueda draws comparisons to Beauty and the Beast when describing Mono and Horned Wanda. He says Wanda was supposed to transform each time he defeated a Colossus, presumably becoming more beastly each time. We see a similar corruption happen to Wanda across the final game, but not to this extent. In Beauty and the Beast is transformed into a monstrous creature as punishment for his arrogance and cruelty. Beast's cruelty before his transformation is primarily described through his interactions with others. He is described as arrogant and selfish, often treating those around him with disdain. An enchantress is responsible for transforming the prince into a beast. Wanda doesn't seem to share the arrogance and disdain of Beast. Instead, his curse is for killing mysterious beings in this forbidden land. I like the idea of the save file from Aiko activating a secret ending. Perhaps Ueda was referring to a different ending when he said that. Although it would have been a good idea to implement another requirement to unlock the ending with the Aiko save file, such as collectibles or something tied to time trials, so that anyone who had played the previous Aiko is not robbed of the final ending. Lastly, I want to talk about the differences between the two endings. In the original ending, Wanda sacrifices himself to resurrect Mono. He is consumed by the curse more and more each time he slays a Colossus. Mono awakens to find Wanda reborn as a child with horns. It's a bittersweet ending, with the two being sealed in the Forbidden Lands. Mono now has to care for an infant Wanda as a mother figure. A big difference in the alternative ending is that Wanda survives. He is reunited with a resurrected Mono. The two ride off into the sun as time begins moving again in the Forbidden Lands. There is hope for the future in this ending. Both endings have Mono resurrected. However, she has lost the Wanda she knows. The two cannot be together. At least they shouldn't be.
From the moment I met you, all those years ago, not a day has gone by when I haven't thought of you.
It was interesting to hear the devs reference a scene from Aiko in the storyboard. I like the idea of Mono being blind when resurrected, and still being able to see Wanda through his corruption. However, I'm glad they stuck with the original ending, as it highlights the tragic consequences of Wanda entering the Forbidden Lands and destroying the temple's idols, with attempts at changing one's fate being futile. I believe this somewhat dour ending has left a lasting impression on players, making it a classic video game tragedy. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, hit subscribe, as I'll likely be revisiting this subject whenever inspiration strikes.